You've been told that discipline is the key to success, that waking up at 5 a.m., controlling your urges, and staying in line will bring power and respect. But what if this is a lie crafted by those who want you obedient, not dangerous? Today, we unveil why discipline, when blindly followed, makes you predictable, fragile, and easily ruled. Machiavelli didn't preach self-denial, he preached self-mastery. There's a difference, and it changes everything. You rise at the same time each morning. You complete your routines with military precision. Your calendar is color-coded, your tasks time-blocked, every action measured, every moment accounted for. From the outside, this looks like strength, control, mastery. But from the eyes of someone who wishes to dominate you, this is music. For there is no greater delight to the strategist, no sweeter scent to the predator than a man who is easy to predict. Understand this: the disciplined man is not feared in the realm of power. He is understood. And what is understood can be manipulated. This is the first and most fatal illusion sold to the masses, that order equals strength, that rigid discipline builds character. But ask yourself, what kind of character? A soldier who obeys orders without question, a bureaucrat who files the same papers each day until he dies, or a merchant who lives by routine so well that he forgets how to see the shifts in the wind? No, discipline does not create a lion. It creates a mule, hard-working, sturdy, but destined to carry the load of others. Those who seek power must learn to be unreadable, uncertain, able to disguise their next move in a cloud of smoke. And yet, what does discipline teach you? It teaches you to be visible, to move in straight lines, to act consistently, predictably, honorably. A disciplined man will rise early every morning. A cunning rival will watch him and strike just before dawn. A disciplined man will eat the same food each day. A poisoner will slip it into his preferred dish. A disciplined man will always respond to provocation with calm. So the manipulator will provoke until the man snaps. And when he does, it is the manipulator who will appear calm in contrast. You see, discipline is not dangerous. It is trackable. What Machiavelli knew, and what most fail to realize, is that in a world of deception, it is not the strong who survive. It is the unreadable, the man who blends discipline with deviation, order with surprise. Let me tell you what predictability breeds. It breeds ambush. It breeds subjugation. It breeds hierarchy, where you are always beneath someone who anticipated your next move better than you anticipated theirs. In The Prince, I wrote of Cesare Borgia, a man ruthless and feared. What gave him his strength? It was not discipline. It was his capacity to act outside the bounds of what others expected. He was gentle one day, brutal the next. He gave gifts 1 hour and executions the next. No one knew what he would do. And because of that, no one dared to cross him. He ruled not through consistency, but through calculated inconsistency. And that is where the truly powerful live, not in the prison of routine, but in the fog of unpredictability. If you wake at dawn, they will wait for dusk. If you never curse, they will curse for you. If you follow rules, they will bend them, around you, against you, until you become entangled by your own sense of virtue. Think, why is a lion feared? Because he roars at the same time each day, because he eats according to a schedule, because he follows the pack's expectations. No, he is feared because you never know when he will strike, or if he will strike at all. He doesn't follow order, he is the order. Now consider who benefits most from your discipline. The employer, who knows you will never ask for more. The ruler, who knows you will obey. The enemy, who knows your limits. But a man who is unreadable, he is feared, not because he is violent, but because he is not stable. And in the game of power, stability is overrated. Unless you are the one who enforces it, you must become difficult to pin down. 1 day soft, 1 day stern, 1 hour silent, 1 hour sharp. Let others attempt to map your behavior. Let them try to decode your pattern. Let them spend time predicting your next step, only to realize you've already moved, because the man who is seen clearly is already conquered. This is not an excuse for chaos. It is a command for calculated variety. When you live by rigid discipline, you become a painting hung on a wall. Beautiful, yes, but still immobile. Your enemies will study you, admire you, and then one day they will strike through the canvas. But when you master variation, when you learn to break your own patterns, suddenly they are not dealing with a painting. They are dealing with a storm, shifting, elusive, and storms are not studied. They are feared. Discipline gives you control over yourself, yes, but when it becomes your God, it gives others control over you. They know what you will refuse to do. They know what lines you won't cross. They know what time you'll show up, and they will wait for you. At that time, in that place, with that knowledge. If you were a prince, would you want your enemies to know the rhythm of your heart? No. You would dance to no drum but your own. You would move with purpose, yes, but with variation, with deception, with style. Discipline without strategy is slavery. But you won't hear that from those who write the self-help books. You won't hear it from the morning motivators or the productivity prophets. They tell you to become efficient, manageable, safe. Why? Because they want to rule. And rulers do not fear the disciplined. They fear the unpredictable. Discipline is celebrated, taught in schools, preached in sermons, praised in military parades. They say it shapes men, that it molds greatness from weakness. But here is the truth they will never whisper in your ear. Blind discipline is not the path of a ruler. It is the leash of the ruled. Look closely at the world. Who is praised most for being disciplined? The soldier who obeys without question. The worker who arrives on time and leaves without complaint. The student who memorizes what he's told and never colors outside the lines. These are not the habits of a prince. These are the markings of a servant. Polished, prepared, and perfectly predictable. Those in power do not need to be disciplined. They need only to appear disciplined. Their lives, in truth, are filled with exception, with indulgence, with flexibility, with decisions made not by routine but by advantage. The greatest irony is this: the masses worship discipline because it gives them the illusion of control. Wake early, make your bed, check your boxes, and maybe, just maybe, the chaos of life will not touch you. But this is not control. It is submission to a system designed by others. Who built that system? Not men like you. Not those who seek sovereignty over themselves and others. No, the system of rigid discipline was created by rulers, by states, by institutions to keep people manageable. To give them rails so they do not wander. To give them clocks so they do not question time. To give them rules so they never consider rebellion. This is why you must understand discipline is not inherently noble. It is only noble when used as a tool. A blade in your hand, not a collar around your neck. Machiavelli did not write for saints. He did not write for monks or martyrs. He wrote for those who wanted to govern, to conquer, to survive. And in the corridors of power, blind obedience is a liability. Imagine a prince who follows every rule, who never lies, who always waits his turn. He will not survive the first round of real politics. He will be devoured by those who bend rules like reeds in the wind, by those who fake allegiance, then strike with poison, by those who know when to appear weak, when to appear just, and when to appear disciplined. Without ever being so, the prince who survives is the one who knows how to use discipline when it serves him, and abandon it when it doesn't. Because real power requires adaptability, and blind discipline strips that away. It tells you this is the way, but power doesn't live in the way. Power lives in opportunity, in the moment when others hesitate, because their code forbids it, and you strike, because yours permits it. They teach the poor to be disciplined, so they will not steal. They teach the weak to be disciplined, so they will not fight. They teach the emotional to be disciplined, so they will not speak up. It is always those with no power who are told that discipline is their path to dignity. But discipline without power is ornamental. It looks clean, it looks noble, but it achieves nothing. A lion does not survive by routine. He survives by instinct, by intelligence, by reading the field. And so must you. Now consider, why do tyrants demand discipline from their subjects? Because a disciplined population is easier to control. There's no need for chains when the people willingly wake, work, and obey without resistance. They call it virtue. But in truth, it is docility dressed as dignity. And here is the most dangerous part. When a man becomes too disciplined, he begins to love his cage. He calls it structure. He calls it purpose. But it is still a cage, built not with iron, but with habit. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must learn to be not good when the time demands it. He must not be tied down by virtue when vice will bring greater rewards. The same is true for discipline. If your training, your structure, your so-called virtue keeps you from acting boldly, then you are no prince. You are a pawn. You must ask yourself, why do I value discipline? Is it because it makes you more effective? Or is it because you fear what happens when there is no order? If your answer is fear, then you are not in control. You are merely clinging to rules because they shield you from chaos. But here is the harsh truth. Chaos is not your enemy. It is your forge. No prince rises without walking through disorder. No empire is built without moments of lawlessness, and no legacy is left behind by a man who lived every day by the book. What matters is this: can you break your own patterns? Can you rise at dawn for 10 days and then vanish on the 11th? Can you be silent when expected to speak and strike when least expected? Can you discipline others yet remain untied by their standards yourself? Because power is not given to the most obedient. It is taken by the most audacious. Blind discipline will never teach you audacity. It will only teach you how to wait politely for what others have already claimed. The world is not run by the most virtuous. It is run by those who know when to betray virtue. You must become dangerous not because you follow every rule, but because you understand every rule and still choose to bend them when the time is right. The disciplined man is applauded. The undisciplined prince is feared, and it is fear, not applause, that moves the world. In the corridors of power, there is no greater liability than the inability to pivot. The man who cannot change course is already defeated, though he may still walk, though he may speak, though he may cling to his routines, his habits, his precious sense of order. But history does not reward the rigid. It rewards the flexible, the adaptive, the man who can think in curves while others march in lines. And yet, what does modern society teach you to become? Disciplined, predictable, steady. They call this excellence, but I call it vulnerability. When your life becomes too ordered, your thinking becomes narrow. You stop asking what is useful and instead ask what is proper. You stop reacting to the situation and begin reacting to your rules. This is not strength. This is strategic blindness. Machiavelli understood this deeply. In The Prince, he speaks of fortune as a river. Sometimes it flows calmly. Sometimes it overflows and floods all in its path. If you build your plans too rigidly, the river will drown you. But if you build with adaptability in mind, with levees and escape routes and alternate paths, then even in chaos, you find victory. The man of strict discipline, however, tries to resist the river. He plants his feet. He tells himself, I will not be moved. And for a moment, he feels noble. He feels righteous. But then the water rises, and he is swept away. This is what excess discipline does to the strategist. It turns him into a man who cannot maneuver. He becomes locked in his routine, even when the routine no longer serves him. He will wake early, train hard, say the right things, follow the expected steps, and still lose. Why? because he cannot break pattern. And those who cannot break pattern cannot escape traps. Flexibility is not weakness. It is the essence of cunning. A powerful man must be able to act contrary to his past self. Today kind, tomorrow ruthless, today silent, tomorrow loud, today disciplined, tomorrow indulgent. That is how he keeps his enemies confused and his allies dependent. But when a man is too disciplined, his enemy does not need to outfight him. He only needs to wait. Because the disciplined man will eventually walk the same path he always walks. And when he does, the ambush will be waiting. Consider the battlefield. A general who follows the same plan in every engagement will be destroyed by a weaker force who knows what's coming. Even the most powerful army becomes meat for vultures if its leader cannot change his strategy. But think beyond war. Look at life itself. Business, politics, romance. All of these are games of positioning, of movement, of timing. None reward the man who cannot shift his stance. The one who insists on playing by one method is always outmaneuvered by the one who plays by many. The disciplined man will say, "This is how I do things." And he will take pride in that. He believes consistency is character. But the prince says, "This is how I do things, until I must do otherwise." That is not inconsistency. That is power. What is the use of waking at 5 a.m. if your opportunity comes at midnight? What is the value of stoicism if a display of emotion would gain the loyalty of the people? What is the point of restraint when a moment of excess would win over a rival? Discipline teaches you to ignore context. Strategy teaches you to exploit it. Too much discipline makes you blind to nuance. You stop seeing opportunities because they fall outside your script. You become the kind of man who can walk past a door that is open simply because it was not on your itinerary. And your enemy, he watches. He sees your pattern. He knows your pace. And when the time comes, he doesn't need to be better than you. He only needs to strike when you refuse to act. You become dependable. But dependable men rarely rule. They serve. They hold the line. They maintain the system. But they do not shape it. Look at the fox, the symbol of cunning in the prince. The fox has no schedule, no fixed path, no devotion to consistency. He survives because he can twist, turn, vanish, and reappear. The fox is not ruled by discipline. He is ruled by advantage. Now consider the lion. Strength, bravery, roaring majesty. And yet, even the lion cannot rely only on force. He must also be able to deceive, to feint, to adjust. Otherwise, the hunter will learn his habits and lay his traps. So what happens when you discipline yourself into immobility? You become the lion in the cage, strong, proud, yet utterly harmless. Because you cannot roam, you cannot change. You cannot strike outside your scheduled time, and the world is not kind to such men. Ask yourself, have you turned your routines into shackles? Has your discipline become your identity? If so, you are not a strategist. You are a servant of your own system. There is nothing admirable about losing with honor if you could have won with flexibility. You must not worship your habits. You must wield them. When the time comes to act outside your character, will you? When the battlefield shifts beneath your feet, will you change your formation? Or will you tell yourself, "I cannot do that. It is not who I am"? The man who says such things is already halfway buried. In every kingdom, in every courtroom, in every battlefield, the ones who rise are not always those who follow order. In fact, those who follow order to the letter often find themselves buried beneath it, obedient, honorable, forgotten. What truly unsettles the world, what truly bends people to your will, is not perfect order. It is chaos, but not just any chaos. Chaos you control. Chaos you release. Chaos that dances on your fingertips like fire, consuming what you allow and sparing what you command. Cold order makes people feel safe. It's sterile, predictable. It runs on schedules, policies, traditions. But it is also slow, inflexible, dull. It paralyzes those who fear disobedience more than defeat. cold order is worshipped by institutions because institutions fear disruption more than destruction. But controlled chaos, that is alive. That is motion. That is power disguised as madness. And only the clever man, only the cunning prince, knows how to wield it. You were told all your life to pursue control, to be still, to be precise, to eliminate chaos from your habits, from your mind, from your room. But chaos is not your enemy. It is your most dangerous ally. Controlled chaos is not flailing. It is not mindless destruction. It is strategy wrapped in unpredictability. It is the storm that others cannot prepare for because it does not follow the winds of tradition. It follows you. Machiavelli understood the fear that chaos brings. Fear is a tool. When a prince creates confusion among his enemies, when he moves in ways they cannot anticipate, they lose the ability to respond. They hesitate, they second guess, they wait too long. In that moment, the prince strikes. In cold order, there is no surprise, no room for improvisation. Everything is calculated, but also easily anticipated. This is why bureaucracies are so easy to corrupt. They follow rules, not instinct. And so, all it takes is one man of chaos, one man willing to do what they won't, to seize control. The unpredictable man is feared more than the tyrant. Why? Because the tyrant is at least logical. He is brutal, but consistent. People can work around him. But the man who is calm one day and violent the next, who gives without warning and takes without pattern, that man is terrifying because he cannot be outmaneuvered. He cannot be mapped. Controlled chaos is not a lack of discipline. It is the superiority of calculated disorder over rigid structure. It is knowing exactly when to disrupt the rhythm, when to break the pattern, when to act outside character so that no one can ever pin you down. Think of the fox again. The clever animal Machiavelli praised alongside the lion. The fox creates false trails, confuses the hunter. The fox survives not by fighting but by making the opponent unsure. That is controlled chaos, and it wins wars. Cold order tells you to stick to the plan. Controlled chaos asks you, what if the plan is a trap? And more importantly, what if you are the one setting it? When everyone expects you to follow a script and you break it. Not recklessly, but intentionally, you create power. You disorient others. You make them rely on you to understand what comes next. Suddenly, you control the tempo. You control the narrative. You own the battlefield, because they are no longer playing the game. They are playing you. This is why kings fear revolutionaries. This is why rulers fear rebels more than invaders. Because rebels bring chaos, and chaos does not knock. It floods the palace gates. It whispers in the ears of the guards. It burns the rule book before anyone can react. But the wise prince is not afraid of chaos. He creates it when needed. He destabilizes his enemies with sudden changes. He releases a storm into the lives of his rivals, then offers them shelter under his banner. He controls both the flood and the ark. Cold order can be comforting. But comfort breeds complacency. Comfort makes you dull, and dull men never rule. Controlled chaos, on the other hand, keeps your enemies on edge, your allies alert, and your power expanding. It is the flicker of unpredictability in your eyes, the sudden decision that breaks expectation, the ruthless move that others thought you were too honorable to make. And once they see it, once they realize you are not tied to cold order, they begin to fear your mind, not just your actions, but your intentions. And fear, when carefully cultivated, is a currency that never devalues. This is why princes who reign long do not do so through consistency. They do so through variation, not by being wild, but by being unreadable. The disciplined man will always act the same. The man of cold order will repeat what has worked before. But the man of controlled chaos can pivot in the middle of a sentence, contradict his previous word, and make it seem like destiny. Let them call you unpredictable. Let them whisper that you are dangerous. Let them fear that you will act out of pattern. because the moment they begin preparing for everything is the moment they can prepare for nothing. Cold order breeds obedience, but controlled chaos, that breeds obedience and fear, that breeds dependence. That breeds a kind of leadership no one can touch because it cannot be cornered, predicted, or outplayed. You are not meant to be the guardian of cold, sterile discipline. You are meant to be the architect of calculated disruption, the prince who holds order in one hand and chaos in the other, and knows exactly when to release either. So now you see what they never wanted you to question. They told you discipline would make you powerful, that routine would make you sharp, that order would lead you to greatness. But the truth, the Machiavellian truth, is that blind discipline is not power. It is a leash. It is a quiet obedience disguised as virtue. It makes you predictable to your enemies, useful to your rulers, and harmless to those who truly play the game. You were not born to be a cog in someone else's machine. You were born to be a player in the theater of power. And in that theater, those who thrive are not the most controlled. They are the most strategic, the most unrateable, the most dangerous. If you live only by discipline, you will never strike first. If you follow rules blindly, you will never rewrite them. If you worship cold order, you will never command chaos. So stop trying to be good in the eyes of those who benefit from your obedience. Instead, be effective. Be subtle. Be calm when they expect rage. Be silent when they expect speech. Be patient until the moment arrives to shatter the script. Because power does not belong to the most disciplined. It belongs to the one who knows when to appear disciplined and when to burn the entire system down. Let others walk in straight lines. You will move like smoke. You will strike like lightning. You will reign like a prince.